of you I don't know. I'm sure we'll get to meet at some point or the other. I've been working at Partners here for the last 2 or 3 months and really been focused on developing this model for Partners Campus student chapters that we're going to share with you today, and hopefully get some of your feedback and input on it at the end. So I'm just going to jump right into the presentation. So for those of you who don't know, we've been looking a lot lately here at the International Office at several things. One being, how can we engage youth in our organization and in our chapters? And the other being how we formalize our relationships with institutions, organizations, businesses, and individuals in a way that allows them to connect with each other within our network and have a more formalized relationship that is more mutually beneficial. So out of those two topics has come this Partners Campus University chapter, which will both allow us to engage youth and formalize our relationship with universities in a way. So what is Partners Campus? Partners Campus is a model, as I said, that we built for founding successful student chapters, recruiting and managing for student organization, meaning that we have the tools in the guide, as most of you have probably already seen, for managing a student chapter once it's up and running, recruiting new members, doing publicity. We have some basic information on planning events, although that's going to be developed a lot more in the future, I'm sure, as we have some chapters get up and running and start having some success stories and people who have actually planned events and service activities and development projects. So teaching students about service and leadership. This is all about spreading the Partners of the Americas philosophy and getting it out there and indoctrinating these young people in what we do and how we do it. And then ultimately creating change in people's lives throughout the hemisphere, throughout the Americas. And that's what it's really all about. So not only that, the Partners Campus is a strategy to ensure Partners of the Americas organizational sustainability by recruiting young people to carry on the legacy of our chapters and carry on the success that they've had in all of their endeavors. And also to build and formalize the POA network, as I mentioned, to create this more formal network that has more obvious connections. That is, that a university is formally recognized as an affiliate of Partners of the Americas because it has a Partners Campus chapter there. Oops, sorry about that. And then also to harness the energy, enthusiasm, and innovation of today's youth and bring them into the Partners organization, Partners network. And finally, Partners Campus is an opportunity. An opportunity, as I've said, to engage the next generation of youth leaders who are going to be coming up as they graduate from Partners Campus University chapters. We're looking at different mechanisms that will allow them to easily and almost automatically transfer their membership to our traditional chapters, and thus bringing in new people and building our membership in our traditional chapters at the same time as we spread our reach into these university groups. Also strengthen relationships with universities, as I mentioned, spread the POA mission and philosophy, that is indoctrinating these young people in our mission, in our way of doing things, and in our philosophy. And then finally, increase Partners' impact throughout the hemisphere. Have more projects affecting more people in more places. All right.
And I'd just like to add to that, many of our chapters already have very strong relationships with universities across the hemisphere. Some of you who are on the call can attest to that. For example, Eric Brand or Antonio Marcos Machado from Espiritu Santo, Eric Brand from Minnesota. they can speak to the work that the partner chapter that they're members of has been able to do throughout several decades in some cases, and the benefits and the value that partners brings to this relationship, brings to the faculty and staff of a university. However, there have been some limitants in how we engage the youth and the students. So this is really our approach of formalizing that, creating a mechanism to capture their activity, creating a mechanism to foment their leadership, get them involved, and develop new projects and programs at the student level. So that's the approach that we're taking, and at the end of this presentation, we'd love to hear more of your own input and your ideas on how we can make this even more successful.
Great. Yeah, that's absolutely right. We're simply building on relationships that are already there. We already have so many chapters doing excellent work with universities in Kansas and Arkansas. We've had students coming from Latin America to study at in-state tuition rates. These relationships have been functioning for years, and we're simply devising a new way to tap into those relationships and bring more out of them. So the pilot program is going to be the first wave of this model being put into place, and we're looking for 10 chapter leaders. That would be you. And we've specifically chosen a group of chapter leaders and members who have already been working with universities in significant ways. As many of them are, as many of you are, professors and already employees, faculty members at universities, in addition to working through partners. So we're looking for 10 chapter leaders to work with 10 universities to found 10 student chapters. And hopefully by the end of the pilot phase, we'll have a much better idea of how you go about founding a chapter and what the challenges are and what we need to develop further. So we're going to start on August 1st, just mainly so that you can have time before the fall semester begins to start doing some research on your university websites, start looking at the process, because each university does have its own specific process for registering a student organization on campus, and we'd love to help you get through that, and it's best if we get started in advance of the fall semester. So it will start on August 1st and proceed through the end of the fall semester, and we're hoping by early December to have, like I said, the 10 chapters up and running, and have a short questionnaire and interviews with each of you to discuss progress that's been made, challenges that you've encountered, and any sort of feedback that you have on the model, on the students' input, anything that could help us to improve this program and make it even more successful. That's what this pilot is all about. So there'll be a short conclusion questionnaire, and then at the end we will republish the guide to founding a chapter once we've incorporated all the comments and suggestions and improvements that we're going to make throughout the pilot. So the goals of the pilot program, these are the specific things that we've already sort of identified that are going to probably need work in the model. Assess the model and supporting materials. The materials are extensive, but ultimately incomplete. I'm sure there will be other things that we need. But if you've looked through the guide to founding a chapter, you'll see in the appendix that there is an extensive set of support documents that should be fairly helpful in getting a chapter up and running. So also we want to generate ideas for improvement. We want to hear your ideas, how the chapter structure can be improved, how governance can be improved, and things of that nature. Better determine the benefits the model holds for students, universities, traditional chapters, and the communities targeted by student-run service projects. So we're looking at what's the value added. Why would students and universities choose to found a student chapter of Partners of the Americas as opposed to, say, a chapter of Lions Club or a service fraternity, or what is our unique niche and how do we further develop that, and what are the benefits that each member of this community is going to bring and is going to get from being a member. So that's something we want to develop and really clarify in working with you and find out where that value really is. We also want to explore the relationship between traditional chapters and student chapters. We had one applicant or one participant, I can't remember who it was, made an excellent point that in an email that our traditional chapters could be an incredible source of strength for these student chapters, and even though there may not be a formal partnership relationship between chapters, between these student chapters, we definitely hope and will encourage our students to reach out to our traditional chapters and lean on them and ask them for guidance, because that is a wealth of knowledge that is just waiting to be used. And we know that you guys have a lot of experience and a lot of expertise that can be very helpful for these student chapters. So we're definitely looking at ways to strengthen that relationship and sort of play with the ways that those are going to line up.
And to build on that, we have received input from some of our members regarding this relationship between these student chapters and existing partners chapters, and we understand that in some cases there is going to be an easy link that can be made between chapters. For example, if there were to be a chapter in Minnesota, given that there is a strong active chapter in Minnesota, then these students can quickly look for guidance and get advice and become involved in projects that the Minnesota chapter is currently implementing. However, if we receive interest from Arizona State University, but we do not have an active partnership or an active chapter there, it's non-existent currently. We wouldn't want that to be a limiting factor in having this new group of partners become involved, this new crop of youth and staff and faculty from Arizona State University, for example, become involved. And we don't want to create those barriers to entry into this organization, into our network. So what we're envisioning is really, it's almost two parallel networks feeding into each other. Those who work with our current chapters can find ways of receiving support through fundraising efforts, through direct volunteer activities on behalf of these student chapters to support their current activities, and vice versa. In many cases, the students, when they graduate from these universities, will want to maintain their participation with partners, and can do so by supporting either the chapters in their home states. They can do so by creating other linkages across chapters. So we really are working at how can we make this much more dynamic, how can we make it more inclusive, how can we lower the barriers to entry, and particularly among our southern chapters, make it much easier for just any individual, regardless of age, regardless of their geographic location, to become involved and to be a partner of the Americas. So that is how we're approaching this, and this is just one of the many approaches that we're developing to facilitate this interconnectedness. If you will see on our new website, we're developing Partners Connect, which is an online platform that's going to allow for greater interaction between our chapters. It's going to offer different institutions, corporations, and individuals to affiliate with partners. So this is just one piece of the puzzle, and we believe it's an important piece, since we keep hearing from our members that well, the difficulty in engaging youth today, the difficulty in maybe selling the partner's idea to youth today, um, is a barrier for to develop or expand their membership. So we really hope to see this as, well, not the panacea, it's not going to be a solution for everything, but we really envision this as being one of the tools that will help even further strengthen our network.
Absolutely. And I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit because we are running a little bit behind. So the goals of the Partners Campus in general, as we've been over these, sort of engage youth, spread the philosophy, engage new generations of leaders, and strengthen and formalize the affiliation relationship. So how do we get started? Well, if you've read through the guide to founding a chapter, you've probably seen this. It can be easier than you might think. And if you just follow these 5 steps, it'll hopefully guide you through the process in a fairly easy way and lead you into the student steps. So get to know us. I'm sure most of the people here probably are very familiar with partners or members. I think we have 1 or 2 people who are coming from outside of our network and looking at this. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I would suggest read the Partners Campus Guide Founding a Chapter, including the appendix items, and check out our new pilot website at the link here. We're getting a question in. Let's see. Okay, Salvador wants to know whether student chapters have to have a counterpart chapter or develop a partnership with a U.S. chapter as in the traditional model. Just to answer that real quick, we decided for the sake of flexibility and openness not to require that these student chapters have a formal relationship, a partnership with a chapter the way our traditional chapters do, but rather that they can form those partnerships if they wish. And just practical reasons for that are we're almost certainly going to start a lot of North American chapters before we start a whole lot of South American chapters. So there's not going to be a perfect 1-to-1 ratio there the way there is with the traditional chapters. And at the same time, we just wanted to allow these students the flexibility to work in whatever country it is that catches their interest and wherever they see a need for the types of interventions and programs and projects that they can plan. So we wanted to allow them that flexibility. That said, we'll see how the model works and see if they really do need a formalized partnership to sort of thrive and stay relevant. We'll see how that plays out. So back on our presentation here, explore the new website, the pilot chapter website. That's for the American University chapter, which is one that Michael Sayer and myself will be starting here in D.C. In the coming semester. So we are both organizers and participants in this pilot program, as you'll find. Also, we will be launching a Partners Campus affiliation area through Partners Connect on the partners.net website. That's not up yet, but it will be soon. Second step is contact partners. We have an introductory information sheet, which you've probably already seen. If you haven't, this is what it looks like, and this is essentially your basic information and then some questions about what your interest is in starting a Partners Campus chapter and what you will bring to that process and how what information you've already gathered on that process from the school. There's a section for student founders only and a section for non-student founders only. So once you're committed to exploring this opportunity, fill this out, email it to us, mail it to us, fax it to us, however you want to get it to us, and we'll keep that on file and get moving on things. Let's see. And then we will call to schedule a conference call and go over any questions you might have and give you our support in getting your process moving. And if you already have a contact at the university, be it a faculty or a student activities director or some students who've chosen to be officers in the chapter. Try to include them in the conference call so that they can be in on the ground floor of this. So step 3, approaching a prospective school. I'm sure most of you would already have a school in mind. You probably already work at a school and have already identified the school, and maybe even some students or a faculty supervisor. But it's good to approach the school, and the appropriate office at the school to contact is the student activities office or the student affairs office, and try to schedule an appointment with the director. And they'll be the ones who can really walk you through the university-specific guidelines and requirements for starting a student organization on that campus. And they will vary somewhat between universities, but they're usually pretty basic. You need a certain number of members, you need a constitution, you need a faculty advisor, and you need to sign some waivers and things of that nature. But generally it's a pretty painless process. You may need to, or some of the student members may need to go to a couple of little workshops that are usually provided free by the university. And then from there, use the guide and the campus chapter development form to guide that meeting with the director. So I won't show that. It's in the guide if you want to take a look at that. And there's a list of questions on that sheet and in the guide that are important to cover during that meeting, namely, how can we promote the club? Can we set a table up? Can we pass out flyers? Can we email listservs? Are there teachers that would let us present in their class? And then on top of that, remember to ask for faculty, staff, advisor, and student officer recommendations, meaning that these student activities directors are really a great source for recommendations for students who would want to be officers or be involved, teachers who would like to be faculty advisors, staff advisors. They are really a great resource for that. So step 4, hold an informational meeting. And this is your chance to sell the campus community on Partners Campus, on the benefits of a chapter. So promote the meeting. After you've spoken with the student activities director and found out how you can promote the club, how you can promote the chapter, go out and do that. Have a table. Email the listservs is probably the easiest and one of the best things you can do. We have in the guide, there's a brochure format that you can print up yourself and fold it and pass those out very cheaply, and posters that you can put up all over campus. And hopefully by this point you have a few students who'd be willing to help you do this, and you wouldn't be doing this all on your own. So invite the students and staff that the director recommended. Develop a presentation about Partners and Partners Campus, or use the one we will develop here in the coming weeks, which is not up yet, but it will be. And then at the meeting, you have 2 main goals. One is to recruit your student officers, which is extremely important, obviously, and the other is just general recruitment and try and get people interested in the chapter and in what Partners does. Get them excited about our mission, get them excited about our projects, and make them show them what their benefit will be by joining. And then step 5 these are the 5 steps for non-student founders. We decided to split it up that way because ultimately it's the students that are going to have to take responsibility for the success of the chapter. They're the ones who are going to be running it. They're the ones who will be coming up with the programs. They'll be doing the hands-on, putting in the man hours to make those projects successful. And that's not to say that a non-student founder couldn't have a very important relationship with the chapter and within the chapter after the founding, but we feel that at a certain point the students really have to take over the founding process and make it their own. And the more you can do to help give them a solid base to launch from, the more likely that those chapters are going to be successful and that those students will ultimately have a chapter of their own. So the steps for a student founder sort of pick up where these leave off if you're a non-student founder, and if you've read the guide, you probably have already seen this. So at this point, I would like to turn it over if there are any questions I'll be unmuting you all now, and we can have an open discussion about Partners Campus. So does anybody have any questions?
Ukiah, this is Eric Brand in Minnesota. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Eric?
Good, good. Very much enjoyed your presentation. I guess a couple things come to mind. I'm looking at the University of Minnesota Directory of Student Organizations, and all of them and their names are pretty descriptive. The Latino Student Association and so forth. Is Partners Campus how you're planning to brand this, and do you think that's going to be specific enough for people to understand, looking at a list of clubs, what it's all about?
That's a good question. Well, the way we have it set up at our American University chapter that Mike and I are putting together is Partners Campus is not really mentioned in as far as what the university sees and what the students will see. It's Partners of the Americas, American University Student Chapter. So we're pushing Partners Campus as the model within the Partners organization of founding these student chapters and maybe the overall umbrella. But at least my thinking is that the individual chapters will have the Partners of the Americas name and then some sort of university plug.
Great. So Partners of the Americas, University of Minnesota Student Chapter would follow the model you guys are using?
That's what we have now, yeah. But,
okay.
You know, I think that's one thing that we're fairly flexible on that could be...
No, I appreciate that. Somehow getting the Americas in there is important, and I've seen Partners Campus a lot, and I think that would mean nothing to somebody who doesn't know Partners. Another question I have is sort of financial.
Okay.
How can these chapters reinforce Partners International? What opportunities will they have to travel through the Partners network? Yeah, I kind of wrote down the benefits of being social networking, academic engagement, volunteer opportunities, but those would be things they would do here in Minnesota. Does Partners plan to set up a structure whereby these chapters contribute dues that go to Washington, and in turn they can apply for travel funds or such things, or competitive grants that they could compete for in order to send some of their chapter members on volunteer projects in the Americas?
That's exactly what we're hoping to do. The way we have it set up right now with the chapter constitution is members pay $20 per semester for membership in the chapter. Student chapters pay $150 per year to the international office in D.C. for a charter. And that $150 per year per chapter will go into a fund, hopefully, that will have grant opportunities coming out of that. In addition, we're looking at how the foundation might be able to rework one of its grants to make it at least open for student chapters to apply. And additionally, there are, at most universities, funding opportunities there as well. So like at the beginning of each semester, students generally pay a student activities fee, which goes into a pool and is used to fund the student activities office and fund events through there, and also allow for grants and project grants, things of that nature, for student organizations on campus. So at AAU, for example, we have both student activities grants, and then we also have what's called an Eagle Endowment, which was set up separately from the grants, that's specifically for service projects for student organizations. So there are several different ways we could look at funding it. The other option is looking at private sources, looking for donations. As you can see, this is the American University Student Chapter website. And I've got a tab up here for donate, which essentially goes nowhere at the moment, but eventually we'll hopefully be able to take on donations online through our website and do things that way.
Terrific. Thanks for that summary. $150 seems like a very cheap fee to be charging somebody if they can expect to get something out of it. So maybe I might just encourage you to start with a higher amount and see if you need to go backwards instead of starting lower and then finding out that Partners of the Americas doesn't really benefit from the due structure very much.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, and we that's one of the main little details that we need to work out and look at is where is that price line, where does it become too much, and how much do they need to pay in order for it to be a benefit for us to bring in enough money for them to be able to provide some sort of service for them. So you may be right. It will certainly be easier to lower dues than it would be to raise them in the future, and that's an excellent point. We'll look at that, and perhaps we could raise it. My thinking on 150 was that we required for a chapter to get up and running, you have to have at least 7 members. And if you have 7 members paying $20 per semester, you've got $140 per semester, which really isn't a whole lot of money. And obviously they'll be running fundraisers and things of that nature to really raise funds for doing activities. But we want them to feel like their dues are being paid and that they're staying, at least a majority of them is staying in the chapter and for their uses.
Terrific. And in your research, have you come across competitive, a sense of competition within these schools? For example, Spanish clubs, Latin American students associations, and things like that. Are you finding that these schools have competing clubs that may not be warm to this idea?
There are a few that work in similar fields. People to People International, for instance, has some student chapters that do exchanges and alternative breaks and things of that nature, and then there's Latin American student organizations on many campuses. But most of the groups you find on campus are doing community service projects. They're doing local, very in-town based service projects, and there are very few that are looking at doing their work and focusing their work overseas or in Latin America specifically. And I think that's a specific thing, a benefit of value that Partners of the Americas brings, is that we have the networks that will allow us to execute these projects over long distances without necessarily having to pay for travel every time we have a project or spend a huge amount of money just to get our supplies or the things we want to move down there. We have these networks that can help us get that done. And I think that's a unique thing that Partners brings.
And I'd like to just add to that Oh, yes, hello? Well, I would just like to add to that, to what Ukiah was saying, that we're looking at other ways to add value to belonging to this network of Partners Campus chapters, and primarily we want to focus on the projects that your current chapters are implementing right now. And for example, right off the bat, if potentially this year, if you can help us identify 2 or 3 current projects or programs that they can get, or they can start supporting, they can start fundraising for, they could start, raising awareness about, we would love to receive those. And we really think that that's going to be a way of really providing a concrete, substantial impact. Impactful project that they'll see that they're not only gaining from being part of this network, that they're interacting other like-minded students on their campus, that they're learning about how to fundraise, that they're developing some professional skills in doing so, but that they're actually learning about the communities, for example, learning about Uruguay in the case of Minnesota and Uruguay, learning about
Michael,
Peru, etc.
If I'm still, is my mic live, Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just mention, every May our chapter sponsors our students from the University of Minnesota to spend a month in Uruguay, and we underwrite some scholarship money for them to go through donations. So arts would be one that we could tap into for that. There's already an alumni network of people who've been to Uruguay through our chapter. And another one could be perhaps veterinary medicine.
Excellent.
That's great.
Can I come in with a question?
Sure thing. Introduce yourself, please. Is this Merrill?
Merrill Raber, Newton, Kansas. Two questions. One is this open to small private colleges as well as, you're talking about 10 universities, small colleges also eligible?
Yes, that's one thing I wanted to mention earlier that the presentation didn't capture. We want to include community colleges, technical schools, and other educational institutions. We work closely with community colleges, for example, Alamo Community College or Houston Community College in Texas. We're identifying other types of these schools and even developing a model for high schools that would be a little further down the road, since many of our youth ambassadors and other programs, their participants, are not quite yet university students.
Yeah.
They are at the high school level.
You've answered my question on that. The second one is, I think I've come in too late to get the whole punchline here, but students are busy with 1,000 things. What will they, in a sentence or two, what do I get if I'm a student and I pay my dues? Why should I join this? What do I get out of it?
Well, that's a great question. We've been working on that very.
That our Kansas-Paraguay partnership is well established. It doesn't relate necessarily to that chapter. What am I going to get out of it as a student? Why should I join?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing we really want to work on throughout this pilot is developing that out and deciding and what are the real value points that we bring. A couple that we've explored and could possibly be things to build on are internship opportunities. We're looking at how we could potentially start matching students from our chapters with internship possibilities through our network.
In another country?
Both in another country and here in the D.C. office or in some of our affiliates here in D.C.
Internships that might produce credit?
Correct.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
Another thing is we're looking at working on a deal with our travel agency to possibly include our student members in our discounted rate for travel. So that would be 10 to 15% off on international travel. That would be exclusively for our members. Another thing is for students who are specifically interested in international development, foreign policy, and in Latin America in general, this is an opportunity to put those skills that you're learning in the university to work before you even graduate. So we're talking about designing your own development and service project, executing it, finding the funds, developing fundraisers, very unique experiences that you're not going to get through any other organization. In addition, we're looking at possible leadership training, like I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Sustainable Network Training Program that we're also running right now, which is focused on fundraising. And those kind of programs would be extended to our student members as well. And we're looking at developing that out a little bit.
So this would appeal to students that are already interested, involved in, or want to be involved in international, particularly Latin America activity, but you must have a bundle of money that makes this webinar and whatever else is going on possible. Where does the money come from?
Well, actually, we're working through different types of methods to implement these programs. For example, the Sustainable Network Development Programs using a different approach. We do not have a grant or anything for that. Instead, we've taken kind of a more entrepreneurial approach in that the participants of the program are asked to organize an event that is going to raise a minimum of $500. Now, there isn't penalty for them raising those $500, but of those $500, the initial goal, 80% of what they raise goes to partners to cover the program costs. And then 20% goes to the chapter, and 100% of the money they raise above the $500 mark goes to the chapter. So we're looking at different types of approaches to fund these types of programs. We're also looking at the added services that we can offer and the partnerships that we can develop. One partnership that we're looking at is, for example, working with the Peace Corps, working with these types of institutions and organizations. Why? Because the network that we're going to start developing are the type of individuals that have the background, or at least have the profile that would be of interest to the Peace Corps, to State Department, to other companies working abroad. So we really want to create kind of a real sense of not exclusivity, but we want these individuals. If you are a recruiter, if you're a person that works at the State Department, or you are a master's program, say at American University School of International Service, and you say, oh, this guy or this girl was involved in a Partners Campus, well, then that tells me that they are internationally minded, that they are civically minded, that they have some type of international background, that they have this exposure. So it automatically is going to set them apart. And there's other, for example, SIFES is an organization of students focused on business. There's other similar types of networks and organizations that.
But funding your overhead right now to do the webinar and to get this whole thing going, is that a USAID fund?
No, it's not. It's as I said, they're generated through the revenues that we develop through the programs, through the participants actually taking part in the programs.
But you don't have a program yet.
For this, we are, and it's coming out of our current overhead from our unrestricted sources of revenue.
Okay. Well, it's immaterial other than that's a question that I'm going to be asked as soon as I start talking about this is, well, who's funding this? And you're saying it's just coming out of partners' overhead.
Unrestricted, yeah.
Well, the ideal situation is that these chapters become largely self-sustaining in that that's a hopeful goal, but I think it's a tough one. Well, yeah, it will be tough, but it's what we make of it. And there are funds for these kinds of activities. Universities already collect student activity fees that are dedicated to student organizations. So they will have that to draw on, as well as their own fundraisers and their membership fees. So the more members a chapter has, the more they will be able to do, because they will have membership fees coming in. In addition, we're looking at retooling some of the foundation grants to allow our student members to apply for those as well, travel education grants. And we're also looking at putting together different fundraising programs that will allow them to be successful in their own fundraising initiatives. But service clubs and chapters in general on a university campus are largely dependent on their own fundraising sources. So that's why you see so many people selling cookies and brownies and hosting date nights and happy hours and what have you. And we don't expect this to be largely different than that, other than the specific support that partners can provide. Okay, good. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions? No. If not,
next steps, Ukiah, I guess you could spell those out. I know August 1st is when you said the pilots are going to start, but we have a board meeting on August 8th. I need to talk to a board meeting then. This is sort of short notice to start something on August 1st. That's next Monday.
I understand. It is very short notice. We've got a board meeting
on August 8th. I'm going to be traveling abroad for most of August. I'm not sure exactly how the timing of this will work. We're going to need to find some people pretty quickly. What's your expectations on that?
Well, the August 1st beginning date is sort of arbitrary, because the next steps are really just each of you individually looking at your university's website and seeing what the process that they have is, because each university is going to be slightly different. Some of them are going to require that you have a certain number of students already interested. Some of them are going to require that one or two of your student officers go to a couple of workshops, in which case you would need to retool and start thinking about recruiting some student officers before you can really get going, and in which case we'd start looking at holding the informational event earlier. The reason that we got started on this right now is because before the semester starts, there are certain things that will probably need to be looked at and things that need to be put in motion before the end of August, when most schools will be back in. So we wanted to go ahead and get you guys involved and get this rolling, even though it's the August 1st deadline or beginning is sort of arbitrary in the sense that there's nothing absolute that has to be done on that day or anything due on that day. It's really just to get us all thinking about this and looking at our websites and seeing who we need to connect with and what needs to happen first for each individual chapter to get started.
And Eric, since you will be presenting this to your board, one step would be identifying an individual within the chapter who could be the key contact or our main contact to push this, or an individual who you would see as kind of fitting that profile of someone who could identify or reach out to students or faculty or staff at the university, and would be the follow-up person for this program. Since, for example, you will be traveling, is there someone in each of your chapters who would be that key person to be in touch with, for us to be in touch with primarily, so that we can then provide all the support that they may need, the branding, because we want to help with the branding of it. We want to troubleshoot any questions that you might have or that these individuals might have. And for example, we're also going through this process, so we know that, for example, at American University, if you want to set up a student group or any type of activity on campus, you need to attend a couple of, they're kind of like seminars, one regarding like finances, one regarding the administration of the management of the student chapter itself, and that's required. Well, that's at this particular university. That's the requirements that this particular university has. And for example, the University of Kansas or University of Minnesota might have a different process. So we want to help each and every one of you with that process. Put us in touch with the key contact at the chapter level that we can help. We can help coach, and they might even know more about this than we do if they're, for example, the actual director of student services. For example, I know that we have one person on the line right now from Mexico City who is the director of student services at La Salle University, and he would probably have no problems in knowing what the procedure is for setting up a new chapter of any type of organization on his campus, since he does that for a living. But in the case of your Merrill or Eric, we may need to do some digging and really contacting the right people to find out what the procedure is.
Is there a chance this webinar is being recorded and could be either by DVD or something passed out?
Yes, this is being recorded, and it'll be put on YouTube, and I can send everyone the link so that you can
review it. That would be very helpful for others to kind of get on board with what we're talking about.
Sure. No, this is going to be ready by tomorrow. We can have it up on YouTube.
Sure. And another thing I just wanted to mention is the kind of support that we're going to provide. I'd like to use the website that you all see as an example. This website, we've designed it so that it will be a template which can be easily changed, change the color scheme, change the university name, and change the university logo, and boom, each student chapter has its own website. These are the kind of things that we can build out and offer as a service for our student chapters as they get up and running.
Very good. Thank you.
Nice job, fellas.
So any other questions or comments right now? If not, just like to say I'll be following up with each of you, and we'll look at what the next steps are. If all of you could just get on your university website, start looking at what the specific process is for your school, and send us any questions, or if you need some help, or if you'd like for us to communicate with someone from the university or school, we'd be happy to do that. And really anything that you want to discuss, please drop us an email or give us a call. And I suppose that concludes this webinar.
Thank you, everyone. And then once again, if there are any questions, please let us know. We will be following up with everyone individually, and we will be sending out some reworked documents, as well as some really focusing on the benefits, because we want the message of why should I join your group and not this other one to be as clear as possible. And with your help, we can really craft that message and really drill it down to kind of an elevator speech. So if there are no more questions, then I'd like to thank everyone for participating today and for taking time from your schedules. And we will be in touch shortly. And if there are any questions that come up, after this webinar is over, feel free to send us an email. Thank you, everyone.